Most people spend their entire lives trying to prove themselves, chasing recognition, defending their value, and fighting to be seen. A Sigma male does the opposite. He lets people underestimate him on purpose, because invisibility is far more powerful than attention. The moment others think he's average, harmless, or unremarkable, he gains the freedom to observe without being observed, to move without resistance, and to build without interference. He knows that the most dangerous strategy in any environment is to be quietly overlooked while gathering the information that others reveal loudly. What people never understand is that underestimation creates a psychological blind spot. When others assume he's not a threat, they expose their motives faster, drop their guard sooner, and give him access to truths they would have otherwise protected. While they relax, he studies. While they brag, he listens. While they underestimate, he calculates. His silence becomes a disguise, and the world treats him like he's predictable, which is exactly why he remains impossible to read, impossible to counter, and impossible to fully understand. Sigma males don't hide because they're weak. They hide because it makes them unstoppable. If you're ready to understand the 10 reasons behind this quiet strategy, the psychology, the intention, the long game thinking, stay with me. And before we continue, subscribe to Silent Wise and drop a comment saying, "You see me quiet, not empty." It tells me you're here for the deeper layers of Sigma psychology. He lets people underestimate him to lower their guard and study their true intentions. He understands that people reveal their purest motives when they believe they hold the advantage. So he deliberately allows himself to appear less capable, less aware, or less invested than he truly is. Underestimation becomes his disguise. When others see him as harmless or simple, they stop performing and start behaving honestly. Their guard drops. Their ego expands. Their real intentions surface without resistance. He watches this shift with calm precision, taking note of who becomes arrogant, who becomes careless, and who becomes sincere once the pressure of competition disappears. By letting people think he's not paying attention, he creates space for their truth to unfold in front of him. This act of controlled humility becomes one of his sharpest psychological tools. While others rush to prove themselves, he removes himself from that race entirely, knowing that the loudest person in the room often understands the least. By staying quiet and understated, he turns people's assumptions into opportunities. Competitors reveal strategies they would hide from someone they perceived as equal. Manipulators expose tactics they'd never use on someone they respected. Opportunists show their greed openly, believing he won't recognize the pattern. And the genuine, the rare ones, remain consistent, treating him the same regardless of how strong or weak they assume he is. This difference in behavior tells him more than any confrontation ever could. What makes this tactic powerful is that it gives him full clarity before he ever makes a move. He learns who values him, who fears him, who envies him, and who plans to use him long before anyone realizes he's watching. Underestimation becomes the curtain behind which he studies the stage of human behavior with absolute freedom. And when the time comes for him to act, he does so with full knowledge of the landscape, who stands beside him, who stands against him, and who thought he wasn't capable of seeing through the act. He doesn't correct their misunderstanding. He leverages it, because the moment someone underestimates a Sigma, the game shifts in his favor without him ever needing to speak. He prefers being unseen because it gives him freedom to move without resistance. He knows that the moment people notice you, they begin to judge you, shape expectations around you, and place obstacles in front of you. So he chooses invisibility as a strategic advantage. Moving unseen allows him to operate without noise, without pressure, and without interference. When no one is watching, he can observe the environment with clarity, study motives without distortion, and shift direction without anyone trying to stop or influence him. By staying outside the spotlight, he keeps his intentions hidden and his path flexible. People cannot resist what they cannot see, and he uses that truth to navigate the world with a freedom louder personalities never experience. Remaining unnoticed also protects him from the friction that attention naturally creates. Competitors don't target him because they assume he isn't in the race. Manipulators don't focus on him because they believe he has no leverage. Envious personalities don't attack him because they don't perceive him as a threat. This absence of opposition gives him the clean mental space needed to refine his goals and expand his capabilities in silence. While others fight to be recognized, he uses the shadows to build quietly, strengthen privately, and plan with precision. His progress becomes invisible until it's too late for anyone to block it. This lack of resistance accelerates his growth in ways people covered by attention will never understand. What makes this preference for being unseen so powerful is that it creates a paradox. The less he is noticed, the more effective he becomes. Operating beneath the surface allows him to gather information others miss, understand dynamics without emotional influence, and move in ways that feel effortless because no one is pushing back. And by the time the world realizes he's been advancing all along, he has already built a position too solid to challenge. Silence becomes strategy, invisibility becomes mobility, and freedom becomes the reward for choosing a path where no one thinks to interfere. He avoids attention so competitors never see his strategy forming. He understands that attention is a spotlight that exposes your direction, your intentions, and your vulnerabilities. The moment people begin watching closely, they start predicting, interfering, or trying to outmaneuver you. So he removes himself from visibility, not out of insecurity but out of tactical intelligence. In the quiet, his strategy can take shape without external influence. No one knows what he's planning, what he's building, or what he's preparing for. Competitors look for patterns, but he gives them none. They wait for signs, but he reveals nothing. His silence becomes a smokescreen, and behind it, he constructs a path that no one can anticipate because no one sees it forming. By avoiding attention, he neutralizes the very people who would otherwise try to challenge him. Ambitious rivals can't counter a plan they don't know exists. Envious individuals can't sabotage progress they assume isn't happening. Manipulators can't influence choices they don't realize he's making. His lack of visibility relaxes the environment around him, luring others into a false sense of certainty. They assume he's static, directionless, or uninterested. Meanwhile, he's gathering knowledge, strengthening skill sets, and setting up moves far more deliberate than they could imagine. He doesn't need the world's eyes on him. He needs their backs turned. What makes this approach so powerful is that it transforms him into an unpredictable force. When he finally acts, the decision appears sudden, even shocking, because no one saw the preparation happening. Competitors panic because they misread his silence as stagnation. They underestimate the depth of the plans he cultivated while they were distracted by noise. By choosing obscurity during the planning phase, he ensures that his execution phase arrives with maximum impact and minimum resistance. Attention is a battlefield. He knows this, so he stays out of the fight entirely until the victory is already his. He uses underestimation as a shield against manipulation and control. He knows that the people most eager to manipulate others search for two things: weakness and visibility. So he gives them neither. By letting people underestimate him, he becomes an unappealing target for control. Manipulators thrive on reading reactions, exploiting insecurities, and predicting behavior. But with him, they see nothing useful. They assume he's simple, unaware, or easy to influence, never realizing that their assumptions are the very trap he set. Underestimation becomes a shield, a layer of psychological camouflage that hides his true awareness. While others expose their vulnerabilities through attempts to impress or compete, he protects himself by appearing unthreatening. Manipulators only play games with people they believe they can move. He denies them that opportunity by staying quietly underestimated. This strategic invisibility forces those with controlling tendencies to reveal themselves before they ever realize he's watching. They speak more freely around him, assuming he won't recognize the subtext. They attempt subtle pushes, confident he won't notice the pressure. They test boundaries, believing he won't understand the implications. And through every miscalculation, he observes the blueprint of their manipulation style, the tone they use, the emotional levers they pull, the tactics they rely on. Their confidence in his supposed naivety becomes their own undoing. What they perceive as his weakness is actually his vantage point. By appearing unmoved, he gathers enough information to outmaneuver them long before they understand the game has already slipped from their control. What makes this tactic powerful is how quietly it dismantles manipulation. He doesn't confront them, expose them, or react emotionally, the reactions they expect. Instead, he withdraws access, shifts his energy, and disappears from their influence entirely. They never understand why their tactics failed or how he saw through them so quickly. His underestimation shield ensured they showed their hand before he showed his. And by the time they realize he was never as unaware as they assumed, he has already stepped out of their reach. In a world full of people competing to be seen, he stays unseen, not because he lacks power, but because invisibility gives him control no one else knows he holds. He stays quiet so others reveal their plans before he reveals his. Silence is his strategy, not his absence. When he remains quiet, he creates an empty space that people instinctively rush to fill. Most individuals fear silence. They interpret it as judgment, distance, or hidden knowledge, so they start talking to ease their discomfort. And in that talking, they reveal far more than they intended. Their ambitions slip out, their insecurities surface, their hidden motives become visible. He doesn't need to ask direct questions or probe for information. His stillness draws the truth out naturally. By saying nothing, he gains everything. People expose their priorities, alliances, weaknesses, and intentions long before he ever shares his own direction. His quiet is not passive, it's investigative. This approach gives him a decisive advantage because it prevents him from entering any situation blind. While others make assumptions or rush into decisions, he allows the environment to speak first. He listens to what people brag about, what they hide, what they contradict, and what they defend. These small inconsistencies form a map of their character, one far more accurate than anything they could present intentionally. Silence becomes his filter. Anyone with hidden agendas eventually reveals themselves without pressure. And because he hasn't revealed his own aims, he never gives them leverage. They play their cards face up while he keeps his hand concealed. His strategy forms in the shadows, shaped by the information others accidentally provide. What makes this method so effective is how quietly it shifts the power dynamic. People believe they're leading the conversation, controlling the narrative, or setting the tone, unaware that he's the one collecting the data that will shape every future interaction. When he finally speaks or acts, his decisions appear precise, calculated, even uncanny, as if he somehow already knew what was coming. In reality, he simply let others expose themselves first. His silence protects his intentions, guards his strategy, and ensures that he never moves without an informational advantage. He stays quiet not because he lacks ideas, but because silence gives him a clarity others only wish they had. He hides his strengths to strike only when the timing is perfect. He understands one truth most people overlook: power loses its advantage the moment it becomes visible. So he hides his strengths deliberately, not out of fear but out of precision. By keeping his capabilities quiet, he prevents others from adapting to them, preparing for them, or attempting to weaken them. He watches the landscape, observes the players, studies the motives, and measures the consequences before he ever makes a move. People assume he's passive, detached, or simply uninterested, never realizing he's calculating, waiting for the exact moment when his strength will have maximum impact, with minimum resistance. Silence becomes his armor, and patience becomes his sharpest weapon. As he conceals his true abilities, the environment around him reveals itself. Those who underestimate him expose their weaknesses. Those who try to dominate him reveal their blind spots. Those who assume he's harmless show their overconfidence. By not displaying what he can do, he allows people to misread him, and those misreadings become tactical advantages. He never wastes energy proving himself or fighting unnecessary battles. Instead, he gathers insight quietly while everyone else underestimates the depth of his potential. And when he finally decides to act, his actions feel sudden, decisive, and overwhelmingly effective. Not because he moved quickly, but because he moved with perfect timing. His hidden strength makes him unpredictable, and unpredictability is a form of power most people never master. While others exhaust themselves showing off, competing, or trying to stay relevant, he builds silently. When the right moment arrives, a shift in opportunity, a crack in someone's facade, an opening no one else noticed, he strikes with precision. The impact is always greater because none of it was expected. He wins not by overpowering others loudly, but by choosing his moment so intelligently that resistance becomes useless. He hides his strengths because he knows this. The quietest force becomes the most dangerous when it finally decides to move. He downplays his intelligence to observe who tries to take advantage. He knows that revealing the full extent of his intelligence too early changes the behavior of everyone around him. People become guarded, competitive, or manipulative the moment they sense someone is sharper than they expected. So he does the opposite. He downplays his intellect. He lets others assume he's slower, distracted, or less aware than he actually is. This disarms them, lowering their defenses and revealing their true nature. Some underestimate him, some dismiss him, and some attempt to exploit what they think is a weakness. What they don't realize is that every choice they make in his presence is being evaluated with clarity far beyond what they imagine. His quiet, unassuming posture becomes the perfect filter for exposing character. As he observes without revealing his depth, people show him more than they would ever admit openly. Those with good intentions treat him the same, regardless of what they assume about his intelligence. Those with hidden agendas expose their strategies faster, believing he won't notice the subtle manipulation. They speak too loudly, lie too easily, or try to control situations they believe he can't interpret. Meanwhile, he tracks patterns in their behavior, connects motives, and maps out the dynamics of the room. Downplaying intelligence prevents him from becoming a target and gives him front-row access to the truth. What others mistake for naivety is actually strategic observation. This subtle approach becomes a powerful advantage when decisions must be made. By the time he reveals his true intellect, if he ever chooses to, he has already collected the information he needs to navigate people and situations with surgical precision. And the shift is always shocking. Those who tried to take advantage suddenly realize they misjudged him entirely. Those who thought they were leading discover he was ahead the entire time. Downplaying intelligence gives him the space to understand others before they understand him. And in a world where information is power, knowing people's intentions before they know yours is the strongest position he can possibly hold. He acts ordinary to avoid envy, ego battles, and unnecessary conflict. He understands that standing out attracts complications most people never prepare for: envy from insecure individuals, power struggles from competitive personalities, and conflict from those threatened by quiet confidence. So he chooses a different strategy. He acts ordinary. He blends into the background, keeps his achievements understated, and moves without announcing his intentions. This illusion of simplicity protects him from unnecessary drama. When people believe he is just another face in the room, they leave him alone, and that distance gives him space to think, plan, and grow without interference. Acting ordinary becomes his shield. It prevents people from projecting their insecurities onto him or dragging him into battles rooted in ego rather than purpose. In this self-created neutrality, he gains the advantage of clarity. Because no one feels the need to challenge him, he gets to observe people as they truly are, unfiltered and unperformed. He sees who craves dominance, who gets threatened by potential, who competes out of insecurity, and who acts with integrity even when they think no one important is watching. His ordinary facade keeps him invisible to those who seek targets for their jealousy or outlets for their frustration. Meanwhile, he absorbs information quietly, analyzing the emotional undercurrents of the environment with precision. Conflict rarely touches him because he gives no one a reason to initiate it. Instead, he builds a psychological buffer between himself and the chaos others create for attention. What makes this approach powerful is the irony it creates. The more ordinary he appears, the more extraordinary his results become. By staying out of ego battles, he preserves his energy for goals that actually matter. By avoiding envy, he sidesteps the traps that pull others into pointless rivalry. By refusing unnecessary conflict, he moves through life with a calm that amplifies his effectiveness. People underestimate him because he allows them to. And when he eventually reveals what he's capable of, if he ever chooses to, the impact is devastating, not because he grew overnight, but because no one realized he was rising the entire time. Acting ordinary isn't a limitation. It's a strategy that keeps his path clear and his power undetected. He allows others to feel superior so their ego exposes their weaknesses. He understands that ego is one of the easiest weaknesses to exploit, not through confrontation, but through permission. So he lets others feel superior, smarter, louder, more capable, more dominant. He gives them space to talk over him, underestimate him, or assume they are leading the interaction. In that illusion of superiority, people reveal far more than they intend. Their arrogance loosens their discipline. Their pride blinds them to strategy. Their desire to display power makes them careless. While they inflate themselves, he listens, watches, and absorbs every detail. This isn't submission, it's psychological patience. He knows that someone driven by ego will eventually expose their intentions, motives, and vulnerabilities without him lifting a finger. As he remains quiet and seemingly unbothered, the mask slips from those who crave superiority. They exaggerate their accomplishments, reveal insecurities, contradict themselves, or attempt to manipulate him, believing he's too passive or naive to notice. But he notices everything: their tone, their patterns, their emotional impulses. In their effort to prove dominance, they reveal exactly where they're weak. And he learns more from what people say when they think no one important is listening than he ever could from direct confrontation. This subtle dynamic gives him a deep psychological map of the people around him, allowing him to navigate relationships, alliances, and conflicts with a precision they never saw coming. Once their weaknesses are exposed, he gains silent leverage. Not to control, but to protect his peace and position. He knows who can be trusted, who must be kept at a distance, and who will collapse under pressure. Those who once felt superior eventually realize they were performing for someone who understood the game far better than they did. This realization always arrives too late. He allowed their ego to rise not to flatter them, but to reveal them. And in a world where intentions are often hidden, the ability to read a person through their own self-inflation becomes one of his most powerful psychological tools. He knows true power grows in silence, not in the spotlight. He understands that the spotlight distracts more than it empowers. Noise creates expectations, attracts challengers, and invites scrutiny from people who want to control, compete, or interfere. So he chooses silence, not out of fear, but out of strategy. In quiet spaces, he can build without interruption, refine his skills without pressure, and think without distortion. Silence becomes a greenhouse for growth, a place where ideas sharpen, intuition strengthens, and direction becomes clear. While others chase validation, applause, or recognition, he works in shadows where no one is monitoring his progress. What he creates there is stronger because it isn't influenced by opinions, comparison, or ego. His growth becomes internal, deliberate, and deeply rooted. Remaining unseen allows him freedom most people never experience. In the spotlight, every move must be defended. In silence, every move can be perfected. People underestimate him because he gives them nothing to measure, nothing to track, nothing to analyze. They assume he's stagnant when he's evolving. They assume he's quiet when he's planning. They assume he's disengaged when he's preparing. This misinterpretation is his advantage. By the time the world notices what he has become, it's too late to stop him. His progress appears sudden, but only because it was happening where no one was looking. The spotlight blinds, silence reveals. His power grows quietly because true strength isn't built through performance. It's built through discipline, restraint, self-awareness, and consistency, qualities that thrive away from noise. He doesn't need an audience to validate his progress. He needs only momentum. And when he finally steps forward, he does so with a force that feels effortless, yet undeniable. The spotlight may belong to those who crave attention, but the real power belongs to the one who doesn't need it. Silence protects his path, magnifies his focus, and prepares him for victories that never require explanation. When you look closely at the Sigma male's journey, you notice one thing. His strength never comes from proving himself. It comes from understanding himself. He moves quietly, observes deeply, and chooses his battles with a precision most people never master. And while the world wastes energy competing, performing, and demanding attention, he wins by conserving his power for the moments that matter. That's why underestimation never threatens him. It fuels him. It gives him space to grow, space to plan, and space to rise without resistance. By the time people realize who he really is, he has already outgrown the version of himself they thought they understood. If you found this breakdown powerful, make sure you subscribe to Silent Wise, where we decode the psychology behind the quiet, the strategic, and the unstoppable. Drop a comment below with the word unseen so I know you're part of the ones who move differently.